doing for these children who cannot read? Oh, don't say that. They're struggling readers. If you call them students who can't read, if you call them illiterate, they'll never learn to read. And I was like, wait, what? I'm facing the problem. You can't fix it unless you face it. And my leaders did not have multiple subject credentials. They were from secondary education, which is frequently what we see is people in leadership go on to become school administrators and often superintendents don't have elementary education experience. It is very bizarre and very different when you teach reading. It's not intuitive. And so if you have a bunch of people who've never taught those foundations of reading, like I'm a 6th grade teacher, do I teach reading? Yes, but not those discrete skills, those ones that we layer very carefully in 1st and 2nd grade. So even though I know as much as I do, I still would not stand in a space and pretend to be an expert, much less these people who are getting to make all the decisions, superintendents, politicians, they have no knowledge about how to teach reading. And so there was a huge problem with the lack of willingness to face it and to address it. And so I was running around at the time, this was like 2015, 2016, trying to figure out if we had any district data. I wanted to know about historical trends. Were we getting better?
Yeah.
Were we staying the same? Were things getting worse? No one had that information. So then I was like, okay, we better dig in further. So I was trying to get at our national literacy rates, which I know now it's very hard, if not impossible, to characterize anything in K-12 education on a national level because of how convoluted and piecemeal our governance is. Right? So right now you're hearing the Trump administration pointing out the problems in K-12 education. And to that I say, good. Like, we were covering them up before.
Right.
But the problems are not coming from the U.S. Department of Ed. It's not coming from the Fed. It's coming from local control. It's coming from a lack of cohesive, coherent, and consistent practices from district to district, county to county, and state to state. So we have a really hard time even defining what the problems are, on a national level. So I found something called the CIA World Fact Book. Ever heard of it?
No? Meaning the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency?
Our Central Intelligence Agency.
There's a lot of weird stuff.
Well, they compile quality of life indicators.
Oh, interesting.
Right? For the world, right? So things like infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, life expectancy rate. There's a number of indicators there.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't have associated the CIA as the people that are in charge of that data, but okay.
Right. And one of those indicators is the national literacy rate in all of the countries of the world. And when I first started looking, way back then, 10 years ago, it was organized as an X and Y axes table. So running across the table were all the countries of the world listed in alphabetical order. And then running up and down were the quality of life indicators. And it was just cells, like a spreadsheet. So you could run your finger over, run your finger down, and see exactly how we measured up against the rest of the world. So in the first world, these are the wealthy nations of the world, anywhere from 98 to 100% of literacy is what you will find. But they're not measuring it by 3rd grade level. They're measuring it by 6th grade level. Because 6th grade is when somebody can independently, without the help of a teacher, be able to engage meaningfully in civic life, right? I tell my kids, everything you read is already written at a 6th grade level.
Right.
And so if you have a kid in your 4th through 12th grade classroom who at least reads at the 3rd grade level, there is a way to differentiate and help them make meaning of complex text. But if they read below 3rd grade, there is nothing that we can do. That is a completely different set of skills that they are missing. That is qualitatively different instruction entirely, right? And this what I'm explaining right now is what our leaders don't understand because they never taught reading, So anyways, going back to the CIA World Fact Book, when you start getting into the developing world, you will see some of them are really high, still in the 90s. That's not uncommon. Because education is prioritized even in these less financially secure nations. But you might just start to see 80s, some high 70s. There are some countries that are very low in the 50s. And these are places that you would expect are war-torn, have anarchy in place because of a complete failure of the systems due to a variety of situations that are deeply oppressive to the people. But, the United States is the wealthiest nation in the world, right? We're in the first world, but we're not just the first world. We are the wealthiest nation in the first world.
Right.
So, most countries are in most countries fall in the 80s or 90s. And all of the first world.
I'm just curious. I once read this book called 3 Cups of Tea, and I can't remember the writers. It's a really interesting book about a guy who was climbing K2 and gets stuck. He has a serious accident, and he ends up in Afghanistan for a couple of years, and he ends up in villages while he's getting nursed back to health. And then he ends up going back to these villages every year for about 15 years. And he's trying to help the girls learn how to read because what they realized was that's connected to like hygiene and disease. It's just like really basic level. So out of curiosity, do you know what Afghanistan came in at?
That is I have not checked. We can go and check.
But be really curious.
They were higher.
Higher. There was a big movement to try to get the girls at least at the reading level, probably at the 3rd grade level or something, so that they could.
They were higher, but I would say that since the Taliban has taken back over the government and has, systematically excluded girls from education, that number might dip. However,
this book was written like around 2009. It actually takes place in the 90s.
But before the U.S. had occupied Afghanistan, the numbers, I think, were low. Don't quote me. I'm not sure. During U.S. occupation, I think they had more access to education. And now that we've pulled out again, it's what it is. However, the Taliban allows girls to stay in school till 6th grade.
Oh, so interesting.
We may not see, I know.
Yeah.
So we may not see the dip in literacy. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I know that topic.
Oh, no, it's a great topic. And if anybody knows more, please write in. Go to our website, k-12confidential.com, and let us know. But so the question still is, what in the heck are the U.S. literacy rates?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously I'm here talking about it. So it's not going to be what we would expect. It's noteworthy, right? But here's the deal. They were not published. The CIA was able to get at these numbers for every other country except ours.
Yeah.
That makes no sense. So either it's I know, right? So either that's
they have the information, right?
Well, okay, so it's one of two things. Either they couldn't get it, or they did and didn't like that number and didn't publish it.
Yeah.
Either situation is devastating for the American people.
Yeah.
And so begin this like long journey of what in the heck is our national literacy rate? What in the heck is our national literacy rate? Because I could not find it. Now, several years later, I came across a number, and I still don't know if it's correct, but it was put out by the U.S. Department of Education that suggested, are you ready for this? 65% literacy rate.
What?
I know. That would put us, I think, in the bottom quartile of the entire world.
So, and when was that you found that?
Oh, probably 2017, 2018 by then.
Yeah. Okay.
And nobody was like, oh my gosh, we are messing up. And so here's the problem. So our public schooling was established in the 1830s by a really rad dude by the name of Horace Mann. He was a representative in U.S. Congress. If you're in education, Your very first credential class on the history of K-12 education starts with, let's all pray to the altar of Horace Mann. He was a great dude. He was an abolitionist.
He has a private school named after him in New York.
There's many schools named for Horace Mann. I love this dude. So he was an abolitionist. He also imagined males and females in these schools. Like he endeavored and was successful in creating, I think, the world's first modern public schooling, secular public schooling option in the world for everyone. So he reasoned, rightfully so, okay, we model our society after the Greeks and Romans because they also practiced democracy. But the ancient Greeks only allowed their citizens to vote, which is what we do too. So they didn't have to grapple with how to create this wide-scale public schooling option because to be a citizen in ancient Greece was just wealthy landowning men who already had access to education. So if those are the only people that can vote in ancient Greece, you don't have this problem. The United States had a very noble dream of creating democracy for far more people. And of course, in the 1830s, women couldn't vote. But Horace Mann, and there was still a huge percentage of people in slavery. But Horace Mann envisioned a time beyond that. And so endeavored to create a system for everyone. Okay? The problem is that they had to figure out how to pay for it. And they didn't know what else to do. So they reasoned, okay. Because at the time, they had a bunch of dudes running around who had like elite university degrees that were private tutors for elite wealthy classes in the country. They were running around as private tutors, which is what was going on in Europe too. They cost a lot of money. And Horace Mann's like, what are we going to do? We can't afford these guys. Oh, we could pay women. Women are good with kids. We can give them access to the training and only pay them a third of the salary. Yay! Yay! Okay, good idea. However, at the time, we could not vote, sign contracts, or own property. So what that means is we were never placed in positions of leadership over our own profession, which is still the way our profession is structured today. We're the only credentialed profession in the United States that doesn't have a national governing board of our own professionals. So you have one, don't you, Mandy, for your profession?
No, I am a charter yacht broker. I am my own brokerage. There is no government oversight at all.
Oh, okay.
As a result, there's a cluster of associations of which I serve on my board of directors for one of them, but we're sort of in charge of trying to self-govern ourselves as a result. And it is it's an international board.
Yeah.
But there's like a national board of realtors, right?
Yeah, National Board of Realtors. There's American Medical Association. There's something similar for attorneys. Mm-hmm. And so they are the ones that get to decide. Now, is there government oversight? Sure. But no politician would sit down and pretend to be able to be a final authority on medical ethics, although that's kind of happening right now. And if you wonder why politicians think they should get to interfere with higher ed or medical decisions, it's because they have the ability and have always had the ability to shape what happens in K-12. We don't have any ability to call our shots. In order to lead the profession of K-12 education in America, you have to leave it. You have to quit teaching and go into administration. So I have my master's of ed leadership degree. I have that credential. I have not left because if I leave and go into administration, I lose tenure. And I become tethered to the local politics in my region. School boards are the ones who have all the say. And school boards hire one person in the district of which they oversee, and it's the superintendent. And so once you are out of the K-12 teaching gig and you move on to leadership, you don't have the job protections anymore. And by the way, there are many, I could think 38 right-to-work states where K-12 teachers don't have that.
What do you mean by right to work? You mean like fire at will, right?
It means they're not allowed to unionize in those states.